Hey guys, and welcome back to, yes, another episode of NTom and Volk's Spot of PC. Sorry for the mundane intro, ran out of adjectives. Welcome to Command and Conquer Red Alert, developed by Westwood Studios and published by Virgin Interactive, the bastards behind such games as The Lion King. For the Mega Drive, this is a classic RTS sort of game, and it is Volk's main squeeze, so mate, this is all on you.
Oh yeah, this is pretty much the first RTS game I ever played. I actually skipped the original Command & Conquer series and went straight into Red Alert, and don't regret it at all. It is an absolutely amazing game. I would go as far as saying a masterpiece.
Oh, look at this beautifully interlaced FMVs from the 90s.
Oh yeah, so I should probably explain what's going on here. So, we're in New Mexico in the year 1946. And Albert Einstein has invented a time machine, and he's going off to try and eliminate Hitler, who you can see here, just in the middle of a rundown factory by the looks of it.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it's one of those sorts of FMV games.
Oh yeah, it's ham to the max, man.
Did he always have that mustache?
I don't know, I guess this is sort of what they are assuming, that he did always have that mustache.
Okay.
So Einstein goes to offer him the handshake. Hitler, perplexed but accepts. And he goes back to the present time. And of course, since Hitler doesn't have his own time machine equipment, he is lost in the time stream forever.
Ah, nice. Oh, so he didn't bring him back with him, he just, left him in the time thing.
Yep, so essentially Hitler no longer exists.
Huh.
So basically they said at this point, screw the consequences, we're going to try it and see what happens.
God, this is like 10 times more complicated than what happened in the show.
As he says, time will tell whether or not this will actually change the future for the better. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Basically, with Hitler out the way, the Soviet Union rose to power, and without being weakened, it invaded China, Eastern Europe, and is now going through the European mainland, which is where the game takes place.
You take care of one evil and another will supplant it, it'll take control of the vacuum that's created.
Yep, pretty much. So the entire game takes place as sort of like an alternative events of World War II scenario. So the idea that Russia is the main problem to deal with, and all the European nations come together to form the alliance to fight against the Soviets, and they vie for control over the European mainland.
There was that one period in time where the Russians were the enemies in, everything. Nowadays it seems like more of the Middle East is the easy target to push.
Well yeah, I mean they kind of did that with Generals, which is another Command & Conquer series that's sort of like a separate timeline where you have the USA, China, and what they call the Global Liberation Army, which is essentially the Middle Eastern territories.
Yeah.
It was actually a pretty good game, although most people were expecting it more akin to be the next Red Alert 2, but there was some disappointment, but it was a solid game overall.
So what are we going to be showing off here? Because as we know, RTSs can go on for quite a bit.
Yeah, so I want to show off, obviously, some of these amazing cutscenes here.
Yeah.
So I put in a few missions in there to sort of show the people how that works. And I've also pulled off a skirmish where you kind of get full control over all the various tech and units and all that sort of thing. So I have that included in there just to sort of show you how the multiplayer side of things would perhaps work.
Uh-huh.
So this is part of the Alliance campaign. So we got these two jets here, and also Tanya Adams, who is the OP infantry unit of the series.
Is the midriff showing garment part of the proper army uniform?
I would assume so, but then again she claims she is a civilian.
Right.
It becomes a bit of a trend, especially in Red Alert 3, midriffs for days, man. But then again, Red Alert 3 has a lot more star power. It has J.K. Simmons, Tim Curry, George Takei, and a few other actresses of questionable origin, let's just say.
Are we talking porn actresses, Volk?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay.
Red Alert 3 obviously had a lot more star power, and as a result, the cutscenes were a lot more hammier than perhaps they normally are. This is actually probably as gritty as Red Alert ever got as far as sort of like the cutscenes and that go. In Red Alert 2, it was sort of like a bit more fantastical than that, with like the whole mind control, controlling the weather, things like that. And in Red Alert 3, they just took it up a notch higher than that.
Oh man, I always kind of get giddy when I see these old type of graphics. I'm such a nostalgia whore.
I know, right? And they kind of do age pretty well, especially with the mod that I'm using for it. It's not so much a proper mod as it is like a compatibility mod. And it actually increases the resolution, so you can do all sorts of stuff with that, and actually make it so like the building's up right in your face, and you actually have some better degree of control with the modern PCs.
I have played a little bit of Command and Conquer. I'm not sure if it was Red Alert, but I vividly remember the Fog of War. It's a pretty interesting way of limiting the scope of your vision, so you actually have to be brave and venture out into unknown territory.
Very simple first mission, you just will rescue Einstein from the tech center, and when you do, you get some help from the cruisers that just basically mincemeat the base.
Oh, rescue Einstein. Brilliant.
And I get a bit too close to the Tesla coil at one point, I think.
Is this the game that spawned the meme you must create additional pylons?
No, that is StarCraft, but we'll get to that another time.
Ah, okay.
This one spawned the meme of your base is under attack. You know, like one of those thumbtack type things.
Wow, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, like the first few missions are pretty damn quick, but it gives you like a scope of what goes on. The missions get more and more complex as you go through, you unlock more tech to use, and the missions in general get harder. It's not all about just building a base and sort of trouncing them with a few units. Sometimes it's a bit more complicated than like that. You have rescue missions, you'll have missions where you only have like 1 or 2 units to control, and you have to kind of go through an entire level just with those 2 units.
Oh, it's Stalin.
How long did it take to get to
Yep.
work?
So this is the first part of the Soviet campaign. And it's simple enough as well, starts off in more or less the same way, except that you're raising down the village, which is a lot less approved, I guess.
I always liked how you could, games where you could play like both sides of the conflict. I'm gonna have to compare it to Sonic Adventure 2 again. You've got like the hero side story and the dark side story.
I always thought it was pretty good, although I always thought the Soviets had the more cooler stuff because they got like the Tesla coils, the Iron Curtain, and all that sort of thing. Whereas the Allies, they just simply have gun turrets and pillboxes and things like that.
Yeah.
I always thought the Allies got the shorter end of the stick in the first Red Alert game, although they did come into their own in Red Alert 2. They got laser beams, weather control devices, and a much better navy, basically.
Well, I imagine by that point they'd managed to pilfer enough like enemy tech to, reverse engineer stuff.
It's just like, hey, they have this Tesla core thing that's kind of ripping our army to shreds. What the hell should we do? Laser turret. Yep, sure, go for it.
Coat all our infantry and vehicles in rubber, it'll just bounce right off.
Well, then again, Soviets did one up them again in Red Alert 3 when they came up with the man cannon.
Huh.
Basically, it is literally a transport that literally shoots your infantry out of a cannon.
Nice.
And they also have battle bears. So yeah, put battle bears into a man cannon, and you have paratrooper bears.
Oh god, I love these goofy old RTSs.
Like I said, in the later Red Alert games, they really did hammer up something fierce. Like, they didn't even take themselves entirely serious in the first games either. Like, in Command and Conquer, you had a special campaign where you have to take out dinosaurs. And in the first Red Alert game, you actually have an entire campaign based around ants.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, you have to do something really, really strange, like hold shift and click a particular part of the menu screen to unlock it or something like that. It was really, really obscure. And the main sort of like dude you find in that campaign actually becomes the main Allied general in Red Alert 2, General Carville.
Dropping all the facts, aren't we, Bob?
Oh yeah. Actually, I would say Red Alert and the original Command & Conquer series both have their own sort of iconic villain, so to speak. In the Command & Conquer series, the original one is Kane, and he pretty much appears in every Command & Conquer game, and even made a brief appearance in Red Alert as well.
Ah, I know all about Kane, yep.
And in Red Alert 2, they actually sort of gained their own iconic villain called Yuri, who is this sort of psychic/mind control expert. And he actually got his own expansion pack, essentially, which gives him his own faction, and you get more missions based around stopping Yuri from basically mind controlling the entire world.
Sweet. So, enough about the lore. What's going on in this mission?
Basically, we don't like the fact that this village is existing and kind of trying to usurp our regime, so we're going to take him out.
You build your houses right next to our beautiful death factories. It's not on.
No, definitely not. And they have all these conveniently placed explosive barrels as well. It's like, how could we not utilize them?
I think I'd order an airstrike on those first, just to like set off a chain reaction.
Oh yeah, that's what I do. Although you gotta peel back for fog of war enough.
They look like Boeing 747s.
They're actually yak planes. And they're a specific type of plane that's machine gunner. And you also get MiGs that fire missiles.
Not driven by actual yaks, I presume.
Well, they could if you want. I mean, we do have battle bears later down the line. For all we know, we could have yaks driving planes.
I'm a very literal type of person.
Although I think it's kind of neat how they mix in like the cutscenes with all like this computer-generated stuff as well. It kind of goes to show that they really put some effort into creating something of an atmosphere. Or just showing off, one of the two.
Yeah, just innocent civilians being bombed to hell.
You know, they gotta have a visual aid to show what you've been doing, I guess. So the next mission is sort of shows off the first taste of the base building aspect of the game. Where you get your mobile construction vehicle, and that turns into a building, and then you use that to build more buildings. As you do.
A beast of a surpassed Metal Gear.
I always found it weird how just this lorry can transform into like this 9-block wide, well, 9-block building almost. It just sort of unfolds itself and just becomes this proper, fully functional construction yard, and I always thought, how the hell did he do that?
Are we sure, like, the Transformers on the Allies side?
Well, you say that. The Empire of the Rising Sun, which appeared in Red Alert 3, did kind of take that up a notch. And basically all of their units were basically Transformers. So they'd like have a land mode and an air mode, or a sea mode and an air mode, or a sea mode and a ground mode.
Like, am I going nuts, or was there a Command & Conquer and Transformers crossover? Or am I thinking of, like, G.I. Joe?
You may be thinking of G.I. Joe, although I am not sure because I haven't really played that.
Well, it's a comic.
Oh, the comic, yeah, well, maybe.
Well, anything can happen in comics. Anyway, what's going on here?
So, this is the second mission. Basically, there's a Soviet base that's blockading some of our production, or a convoy, actually, I think is what the actual thing is. There's a convoy that's coming in 25 minutes' time. Or 25 minutes as far as game time is concerned, because, of course, the game speed is ever so slightly faster than real time. And you can actually increase it to go much faster than real time. So, essentially, we're just going to build a base out the Soviets and let our convoy go through.
What's your preferred method for taking down enemies?
My preferred method of taking down enemies, I actually have quite a few. I usually have like an early game strategy, a mid game strategy, and an end game strategy.
Run us through those.
Alright, the early game strategy is building a bunch of infantry with a few engineers, rushing towards their main base building, and capturing it. Usually it will be their construction yard, I'll capture it, and I'll either sell it or I'll start building defenses around it to take out the rest of the base. Mid-game usually just involves building a few tanks and just brute forcing them. Then late game I just get kind of cocky, and I usually just build an MCV, build it right next to their base and start building Tesla coils around their base, and just electrocute all their buildings.
I tend to go like all in at the start, and so by the end I've got like barely any resources left.
Well, that's the Rust strategy in a nutshell for you. You gotta go big or you go home. Still a viable strategy though. Especially if they don't expect it, and you just win. And you know, and that's like a 5-minute victory for you right there.
Well, oftentimes it's a crapshoot, because the AI can either be completely on the ball or completely pants on head retarded.
Yep, this is true. And luckily there are AI difficulties to reflect that. Although it's more fun if you do it against a human player, because you're just like, ha, didn't see that coming. So did you actually play any of these sorts of games online, or sort of, not necessarily RTSs, but just sort of online games in general?
I think I played a fair few. They were mostly just like board games, via like board game online and such.
Ah, fair enough, fair enough. Well, obviously I have my RTS as sort of like my main course of doing online gaming, although I did play a bit of Unreal Tournament 2004 online back in the day. And, what else? I think I did a bit of Worms back in the day as well. But it was mostly RTSs and the odd MMOs scattered in every now and then.
So will this be the start of a series of RTSs being shown on NTom and Volk's Spotted PC?
As a matter of fact, yes it is. As well as Command & Conquer being my, perhaps, main RTS game to go by, because of course it was the one I grew up with, the one I most connect with. There are other RTS games out there which are very, very good and also influence the industry in many different ways. So, I decided we're going to do 3 different RTSs. We got Command & Conquer, we'll have StarCraft, and we'll also have Warcraft 3.
Neat.
But we'll save all of the basic trivia for those when we get to them.
Yeah, otherwise we'll have nothing to say.
Yep, indeed. And there will be a lot to say, and I want to make sure I can get it all in when it's relevant.
So how goes the commie destruction?
Pretty good. We're doing a bit of a flanking maneuver just to make sure that I try to escape round the back. And we're just going to raise the rest of the base, and hopefully then the convoy will be clear to go. The nice thing is that you don't have to wait for the rest of the time to go down if you manage to destroy everything. If you do destroy everything, they'll just come by and, just go to the exit. And then, mission accomplished. So we're just sort of looking around, seeing what else we can destroy. Oh yeah, it's worth noting the tanks can actually run over people, so, if you got a tank being harassed by infantry, just turn the treads on them and you'll be fine.
Dude, oh god, my legs!
It makes that satisfying squelch sound as well, which is even better. Like, the sound effects in this game in general are pretty damn top-notch. I mean, for the time, obviously.
How big can the map get? Because I'm noticing the fog of war is being pushed out quite a ways.
You get some really, really big maps later down the line, especially during the later campaigns. Some of the maps get absolutely huge.
Actually, an RTS memory comes back to me. There was this small soldiers game on the PC where you could play as like either the Gorgonites or whatever Chip Hazard's team was called. It honestly escapes me. And I think you had to like take over a house or something in like the yards and so on and so forth. But I could never get it to run on my PC, and I was so sad.
Oh, that's a shame. I do remember playing a small soldiers game on the PS1, and that was kind of like a third-person shootery type thing.
Oh no, nothing like that.
Ah, fair enough. I was thinking, is that game? It doesn't sound like it.
I had Small Soldiers for Game Boy, actually.
Ooh. Very retro.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about it.
Fair enough. There we go, the convoy is out there safely. There's actually another mission involving convoys on the Soviet side, which you can literally complete in a few seconds, and that's if you just rush your convoy over the bridge, just past all of the tanks and such, and if you're lucky, you'll get it to the end just fine. It's also worth noting this game with a couple expansions that also give you more scenarios. Although they don't contain the AMV like cutscene type stuff, they do actually introduce more flavor and story. Like the Soviets built their own super cyborg called Volkov, who is basically their answer to Tanya, and he just ripped through everything. And he also has a cyber dog called Chevskoy or something like that, or Kitskoy. And he's a robo-dog that has like the range of 1,000,000 years and will basically leap on infantry from the other side of the screen, essentially.
Sweet. I don't mean to like shit on the lore, but I can't let this pass. You said AMV. I think you mean FMV.
Yes, FMV, yes, sorry. I'm getting my terminology mixed up here.
Just cut to like fucking Dragon Ball Z with Linkin Park in the background.
Oh god, that would be terrifying. That's what I get, I suppose. So here we go. This is the skirmish mode. So in skirmish mode you have various options of maps and player amounts to choose from. So you got your small maps that are suitable for 2 players, you got larger maps that are suitable for 4, and then you got the absolutely huge maps that can have up to 8. And you can set the difficulty however you want. You can even set the tech level, the difficulty of the AI, if you start with units or not. There's a lot of neat little things you can tweak just to make that experience how you want it.
What is your preferred like Command and Conquer Red Alert sort of like playtime and style? What modes do you tend to prefer over the others?
Either online or skirmish, generally. Skirmish if I don't have anybody to play with online, although with Red Alert 2 I did actually take the whole ranked mode thing very, very seriously, and I did actually get within the top 100, I believe, if I recall correctly. I was pretty damn good at the game by the end of it.
So what's that thing doing at the bottom? That thing that keeps flipping?
That's the ore truck. Essentially it's a dump truck, and you use that to collect the ore, which is then refined into credits, which you then use to buy all your various things.
Okay.
So they're your moneymakers.
So what is Tiberian?
Tiberium is the main plot point of the original Command & Conquer games and works kind of in the same way as ore, although it's more central as a plot point because, it's like this alien resource that came from somewhere, it's poisonous to humans, and basically it can be refined into various metals, and basically Nod think Tiberium is like the means of the future of contacting an alien race. And they're sort of like a quasi-terrorist group.
Yeah.
As a result, so they're kind of like going around trying to spread the prophecy of Tiberium. And the whole series kind of evolves from there, and eventually you do get to meet said aliens.
Did you really think it was smart attacking the base with like just foot soldiers?
Well, it did work for a little while, but unfortunately they built more, which I wasn't expecting.
Their birth rate outranked your death rate.
Yep, in this case it absolutely did. But that's okay. I managed to get him to waste a lot more money than me, so, you know. I call that a net gain, so I think if I sent in another lot, we should be golden. Maybe pop in a few tanks as well, for good measure.
Just equip them with bazookas and this will be over, like, before the sun is down.
Well, I did have a few rocket infantry in there, just for the purpose of taking down those buildings a bit easier, but obviously that didn't work. They sniped them out from the various other small blobs that represent my infantry.
It looks like you're harvesting balloons.
It does a little bit.
They're so colourful.
Well, the gemstones are actually much more valuable, so if your micromanagement is good, you can literally have your ore trucks snipe out the gems and then just have a lot more money in general. But, you know, you have to be, like, either very, very good at RTSs in general or Korean.
So, tell me some of your favourite Command & Conquer memories, like, how does the series rest in your mind when you go back to it?
I think in general it's just had that, it introduced me to a genre that I would very, very much keep enjoying. It was my first introduction to it, but as far as fond memories go, I think I could probably say most of Red Alert 2, especially the expansion, Yuri's Revenge, because there was an allied mission that takes place in Hollywood, and you can rescue some civilians, and they were celebrities with changed names, so you got like Flint Westwood, for instance, who's obviously based on Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a bunch of characters like that, and I remember that being a particular fond moment, but there are also like just the whole, my first foray into online gaming as well. There's a lot to be held dear in that respect.
Well, you were smart this time and you sent in a couple of tanks.
Oh yeah, now we're doing much better. You know, back then we didn't have our war factories, and now we're pretty much ready for them, so we're just dismantling a few buildings.
I like how it like packs itself up like some kind of IKEA furniture.
It's just like, what? Put it down. Wait, just got to undo this screw. Yeah, there we go. It's all done.
I laugh, the fog pulled back and it's just like a fleet of Shaggerhards or something.
It's just a bunch of shelves neatly stacked together. So at this point I think, okay, I've got them on the ropes here, so I noticed they're actually the opposing faction to me, so I'm obviously playing as the Soviets this time around, except green, because, you know, in multiplayer you can choose your colour. And I've decided I'm going to capture their construction yard.
Nice.
So that gives me access to allied tech, which I don't actually think I end up using, but, you know, the thought of it being there was good enough. Also, if things went to pot, I still had another construction yard hiding at the back, so if everything got raised down, I'll still have, like, another means in which to recover.
You love the word raised, I've noticed.
Well, what else are you doing to these buildings?
Annihilating them?
Blowing them up, destroying them,
Decimating them?
turning into rubble?
Decimating means removing 1/10 or something, I believe.
Fair enough. Well, I guess raise is just my go-to word. It just feels more satisfying.
It's green now, it's ours now. How do you feel seeing an odd colour in the centre of your base?
You just suddenly picture just like this dude running up to it with Dulux paint just splatting it over. It's like, yeah, it's ours now. But you didn't. Nope, ours.
The grim origins of Splatoon. We're actually watching the Squid Wars unfold right now.
This is the Squid Wars in the gritty World War II environment. So there we go. I built a Tesla core there as well, just to get rid of the rest of the units. I just love the sound effect of a Tesla core. It just goes... So satisfying.
I just had a small brain fart, and for a second I thought we were playing Theme Park. So I thought that the Tesla coil was some kind of insane ride.
I want to get zapped by the Tesla coil. He's just like, oh, if you have enough money.
God, you've got a lot of these factories going on.
Actually, there is a reason for that, and the factories there are your power plants, so obviously you need more power, and Tesla coils in particular take up a lot of power.
Yeah.
And there's actually another reason for building multiples of buildings, like your barracks and your war factories and your construction yards. And the more you build, the faster you actually build units.
I was going to say, do you get like a production bonus or something?
Yeah. Back then, they didn't have a thing where you can sort of like have separate war factories produce separate units, so their way around that is just so they produce the units faster. And you can set a primary building, which is where all of the things get built from.
Yeah, well, this is a pretty early RTS. Came out in 96, I believe, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is a very early RTS, so we didn't have things at the time like thinking of an example here, being able to queue up multiple units, so you kind of have to build everything one at a time. Whereas in later games, you will be able to actually queue up units so they'll all build and you can kind of set it and forget it. And I think that's pretty much it, although the aforementioned being able to produce units from separate production buildings rather than just faster production also comes to mind. They did lots of things as they were going through the series, like they tinkered around with sort of how the capturing system works, whereas in this game, capturing a building requires you to weaken the building first before you can get it. They kept dancing around this idea of having the engineers actually capture the building outright without needing to weaken it, which can cause very, very cheesy strategies, because you could just send in a armoured carrier with a bunch of engineers and just capture it near enough an entire base, if they're not careful. And later on they sort of changed it around a bit, so you kind of had to capture it from the outside, and there was like a time limit, and if you met that requirement you'd capture the building.
So what is the main goal of this particular mission? Because it seems to be just like going on and on.
Well, the skirmish just involves you going up against a few AI opponents and basically killing them all. And we skipped ahead a bit as well, just to save a bit of time, because there was just me kind of expanding my base a bit, building more Tesla coils, getting these mammoth tanks.
I was going to say getting the mega tanks up and rolling.
Oh yeah, the mammoth tank. Very, very good.
If I saw them rolling towards me, I think I'd fuck off to another country.
The mammoth tanks are indeed very deadly, as well as just having those massive cannons. They do also have anti-aircraft and infantry missiles, and they can also regenerate health up to halfway.
Oh jeez.
The Mammoth Tank was actually introduced as a good guy unit in the original Command & Conquer, the GDI, or the Global Defense Initiative, as it is also known. And eventually the Mammoth Tank would have become this, like, bipedal unit. Well, quadpedal unit, rather, should I say. It was basically just like a giraffe with laser cannons. It was pretty damn amazing. And there was another iteration called the Marv, and it was basically just a huge tank that literally took up the space of an entire factory. So they changed around what the Mammoth Tank represented after a while, but it's a force to be reckoned with no matter which way you look at it.
Can you put a Tesla coil on one of your vehicles and have it travel with you?
You can't have a Tesla coil on a vehicle, however you can purchase a Tesla tank.
Nice.
Which is more or less the same thing.
Oh, yes.
You do also have Tesla Troopers as well, which are essentially the infantry version of a Tesla coil, and Tesla Troopers would actually become somewhat of a mainstay unit in Red Alert 2, because you can actually have your Tesla Troopers power up Tesla coils and make them even more effective.
Oh my god, an army of electros, that's amazing.
Yeah, you can essentially just have an entire army of electrical infantry. It was actually pretty damn nice.
Oh, you're filling out the map quite nicely now.
One thing I do tend to do is I like to sprawl, because eventually you can get to the point where you're building right next to the opponent's base and you can just sort of start encroaching on them.
I saw stuff marked with fake, what's that mean?
One of the main parts of the Allies, when they got the Counter-Strike and Aftermath expansions, were they could build fake structures. So you could build like fake war factories, which are very, very cheap buildings. And you can use them as sort of like to distract the enemy from like the main building.
Red herrings, essentially.
Yeah. Basically, they take normal damage from tank fire, but infantry literally burns them to shreds, which leads me to believe they're probably like blow-up factories or something like that. They're just like bouncy castles.
Yeah.
So here we go. This is where I start initiating one of the cheese strategies. So I have an MCV right here, and I'm going to start sending it towards their base and start building Tesla coils right next to them.
Just a whole, like, wall of Tesla coils. Try and bypass this, fuckers.
I mean, a structure you can repair and such. With a vehicle, it's a lot harder to actually repair them, so there is a certain degree of viability in that strategy, although you probably wouldn't want to pull it off against a human opponent unless you were, like, just messing around with them, toying with your food almost.
Man, you're like dominating them so hard, I'm actually starting to feel a little bit sorry for the Soviets.
Well, this is the other Soviets. They're the they're the fake race. This is what we're the real Soviets. They're just pretenders.
So there's alternate universes within the alternate universe. You've got the campaign, and then you've got the skirmish Soviets.
Yeah, pretty much. They're all fighting for control at this point. You know, this is after the point where Stalin has been ousted, so everyone's like going, "We will control the Soviet Empire." It's like, no, us. It's like, green is the better color, damn it.
You know, you might want to take out those fire shooters, though.
I was more intent on taking out their production and also the units firing at me as well, so I'm going to try and run them over. Also, I'm trying to distract them. Our chronosphere is almost ready.
And what's that?
The chronosphere was what Einstein used to teleport to out Hitler, basically.
Oh, jeez.
And in this case, with the chronosphere, you can teleport a single unit and teleport anywhere on the map that you've revealed.
Oh.
I think you can even do it in general, but of course, knowing where the damn thing is going is usually preferred. And the chronosphere itself would actually evolve as well in later games. Whereas you were only able to teleport one unit, you could teleport several units in Red Alert 2. And you can also do things like chrono shift a bunch of enemy ships onto land and blow them up instantly.
That's mean.
Or you can do it vice versa. Chronosphere a bunch of their tanks into the ocean.
No, we weren't equipped for subaquatic combat.
They did eventually get the idea and start building amphibious units. So there we go, they're almost down, we just gotta assert our authority a little bit more.
Oh, is it just the skirmish for the rest of the video then?
Yep, that is correct.
Damn.
But yeah, skirmish mode does allow you to have some very, very fun moments. I mean, obviously online is probably a bit better because having a human player as opposed to an AI player, probably a bit more preferable. But, you know, it's still very fun for if you just want to prat around for a bit.
I like how I ran out of that fire chute and got blasted by the Tesla coil.
Oh yeah, we are the superior base defense. So there we go, we have teleported our MCV behind enemy lines now. And we're going to start building Tesla cores from that side as well. It's like a virus almost, we're infecting them from the inside out.
Which will go down first, the fire shooter or the factory?
The construction yard is very, very steady. There's a reason why it's an important building, and the important buildings need to have, I guess, the most hit points.
Yeah, the highest defense.
Yep, but if you take it down, they're not going to be able to produce anything unless they can make another MCV, which you need a specific set of structures in order to do, which is a war factory and a service depot. And most people tend to ignore the service depot. But as far as this game comparatively to other games, I guess as far as this game's concerned, it's the skirmish maps aren't quite, you know, inventive. Although in the later expansions they did introduce a skirmish map which has random civilians, and the civilians have basically been given access to super weapons. So you'll have civilians going around with machine guns and miniature nukes and things like that.
Oh, okay. You said a machine gun. I was like, that's not a super weapon. A miniature nuke. That's what I think of when I think of a super weapon.
Well, when I mean a machine gun, what I mean is like a rocket-powered Gatling gun or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous. It's kind of fun, although if all the civilians go after you from the start, good luck. Later games would kind of take the skirmish things to a point where you had more competitively viable maps as well as interesting ones as well. Like, eventually they got to a point where maps kind of met a set quota, so to speak, so resources would be somewhat evenly spaced out. There'd be some slight differences in the landscape to make things a bit trickier, and things like that. But in order to maintain competitive viability, that's the direction that most RTSs tended to go, because as online got more popular, they realized maybe having these imbalanced maps is not the best idea.
So just to finish off, like, besides like Command and Conquer and StarCraft and Warcraft, are there any other RTS like franchises you enjoy or at least have played over the years?
Actually, yes. There is another series called Supreme Commander, which is a very extreme version of the RTS genre, where they did things like you could zoom out all the way to like the map as sort of like your active screen. You could have like hundreds upon hundreds of different units rather than like maybe 10, 20 or so. And they also have experimental units, which are essentially massive units that like took up good portions of the screen, were like as big as bases. Like you got UFOs, spider bots, massive aircraft carriers, that sort of thing. Yeah, that was a pretty damn fun game, although probably not as popular as, maybe not StarCraft in particular. I think StarCraft ended up being the most popular, seeing as that got like a massive esports following. But it was a very, very fun game as well. You could, just having access to massive units like that gives you a certain sense of satisfaction.
Does the name Age of Empires ring a bell? Because I have played one of those, I think it was 2.
Oh yes, I played a little bit of Age of Empires as well. I actually got a CD of the first Age of Empires game. Where I got it from currently escapes me, but I remember spending more time in the map customizer than anything else, just sort of making my own maps and scenarios.
Nice.
And that's sort of like where I started getting some of my creative spark from, I guess.
I wouldn't actually mind covering one of those games for the channel down the line.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, maybe after we've gone on our initial RTS binge, we can bring in Age of Empires or something.
Okay, we seem to be wrapping up the episode now, so Command & Conquer Red Alert.
Very, very, very good game. I would say probably Red Alert 2, maybe slightly better, but I wanted to cover this one because it was my very first RTS, and as a result holds a very, very special place in my heart.
Yeah, it's near and dear to you, so to speak.
Yep, exactly. It may not be the best, but it's certainly my most cherished.
So is this the end of the skirmish?
Yep, we just gotta take down this missile site with the Tesla core, and then we are donezo.
Okay guys, that brings us to the end of another fantastical episode of NTom and Volk's Spot of PC. We shall see you in May for episodes 9 and 10, and number 10 is our first anniversary, so we'll see you then. Bye bye.